Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. I'm your host, Jeffrey Halley, on Thursday, the 26th of September. Our guest today is Kian Soon, the CEO of Astral Asset Management, coming to us today from Singapore. Kian Soon, welcome as ever to the show.
Good afternoon.
And you've just returned from a business trip to Beijing, so we'll be very interested to hear those experiences after I've read out the overnight news on markets in Wall Street and touched on the performance of markets in Asia today. Going back to Wall Street overnight, the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 closed lower on Wednesday, but the Nasdaq remained almost unchanged, with markets appearing to be taking a little bit of money off the table and awaiting a few heavyweight speeches and US data running into the end of the week. The Dow Jones fell 293.47 points or 0.7% to 41,914.75, led by falls in pharma company Amgen. The S&P 500 lost 10.67 points or 0.19%, finishing at 5,722.26, while the Nasdaq managed to climb 7.68 points or 0.04%, closing at 18,082.21. In Asia, though, futures on all three of those indices have risen sharply in Asian trading, following strong results from tech company Micron, and you can associate the magic two letters AI with that result, as well as improving China sales for Tesla, which somewhat surprised markets. The US dollar also rebounded sharply overnight, continuing a pattern that we've seen this week of very choppy multi-day range trading ahead of key US data and speeches by heavyweight Fed speakers like the Fed Chairman Jay Powell due this evening. The dollar index rose 0.57% to 100.92 overnight. The euro versus the dollar fell 0.42% to 111.13, with dollar yen rising 1.0% to 133.75, while the offshore US Chinese yuan also edged higher to 7.0330. The major currencies are almost unchanged in Asia today on the Forex markets, although Aussie and Kiwi have risen sharply this morning following yet more announcements out of China that we will discuss shortly. Gold also remains steady overnight, as well as this morning in Asia, hovering near recent highs, trading at around $2,660 an ounce. The major story that seems to be coming out this morning is one from Bloomberg News, which is reporting that China is considering injecting up to 1 trillion yuan of capital into the largest state banks in China to support the economy, or to support their ability to support the economy. That seems to have boosted Asian stock markets across the region. And to look at what's happening in Asian stock markets, it's a sea of green today. The Nikkei 225 has risen sharply, up 2.15%. In Shanghai, another good day again, rising 0.78%, with Hong Kong's Hang Seng jumping by 2.21%, an impressive effort there. The ASX 200 down in Australia is up 0.85%, while South Korea's Kospi has also enjoyed a banner day, rising 2.15% for the session so far. In Singapore, the STI has climbed 0.44%, while Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia seems to be a little bit of an outlier, the KLCI falling by 0.3%. Kian Soon, what do you make of the market moves today?
I think we could say that majority of the markets are all green. I think taking a lead from what the Chinese and the Hong Kong markets from the last few days, we could see that there's a massive rally in the Asia region that benefits the regional markets as well.
Okay, and is this really driven by this news by the Micron results overnight? Is that what's driving the markets in South Korea and Japan? Or is it this Bloomberg story about the recapitalisation Or is it actually, there's another story running around that China is preparing to make fiscal transfers to poor people in China, as well as university students, graduates who have been out of work for 2 years or more? Or is it a combination of all of the above?
I think it's a package and combination of all the good news. We haven't seen any bad news recently. I think starting from the rate cuts triggered by Fed, as well as the recent Chinese monetary policies and measures that were announced 2 days ago. It's just a ton of good news that has been swarming the markets, and that creates the euphoria that investors are all coming back, and that's what we are seeing for the last few days.
Now, you've just returned from Beijing, and I guess you spent quite a bit of time there with Astral Asset Management. Can you tell our viewers what the mood on the ground is there? Because it's a little hard for us outside of China, of course, to actually get an exact feeling of what the everyday consumer is experiencing over there.
Yeah, I think the traffic in Beijing is still a nightmare during the peak hours as you attempt to swing from east to west or west to east for meetings. People are all going to work as the same as usual, but definitely you see a decline in terms of the traffic in the malls in the evenings. I think those embarking on F&Bs are all good. As the Chinese love to eat. Business associates have their business lunches, etc. But you could see that in terms of the retail footfall is definitely much lesser than before.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom, so to speak, then.
When you talk to entrepreneurs, I think they are still very motivated. For those running a business, yes, but they are also more conservative in terms of how they manage cash flows, more conservative in terms of taking up loans. As we know that the overall investment climate has been challenging, and I'm sure the business community are fully aware. And what I've been hearing and sharing is, if you're seeing the bazooka of monetary policies and measures that have been launched in the last 3 days, we could be certain that the Chinese government is aware of their economic slowdown and problems. And that's why they're launching this full series of measures. And I think it come in waves because monetary policies, as we know, is just part of the solution. What you have mentioned, in terms of fiscal stimulus measures, I think we could basically see more coming in the coming months. There's no hurry actually, to package everything together in one day and announce it. It's more likely to be a series of packages. And what we have witnessed this week is the massive monetary stimulus. And I think the fiscal stimulus that will be announced after their national holiday on October 1st will sort of cement and push the economic slowdown into a better situation.
Right, because if we circle back to the headlines today, firstly, that Bloomberg story that the government is considering adding another 1 trillion yuan of capital to its largest state bank so that they are better able to support the economy is one story. But a piece of the puzzle that is often a source of criticism in previous stimulus packages is that the Chinese government doesn't really attempt to lift consumer spending. They can remain focused on this export side of the equation. Now we're starting to hear stories that they're considering handouts directly to the poorest people in China in the form of cash, and also handouts to university graduates who've been unemployed for more than 2 years. Is this the final piece of that puzzle from your point of view? Are they on the right track by going down this road as well?
I think the Chinese government has always been prudent in terms of trying to give handouts to stimulate consumer demand, which we knew was a challenge for the last few years. And the consumer demand was slow or was not good, mainly because the Chinese conservative lot, if you look at the savings ratios, wherever they realize that there's significant headwinds or slowdown in the economy, they tend to save even more and spend less. And that sort of create this vicious cycle, right? And right now, I think there are talks about trying to help the university graduates who are struggling to find jobs, the unemployed youth or the needy group. I think is a good measure, but there needs to be a balance between giving out excessively to everyone versus being achieving fiscal prudence, which has always been the core of the Chinese government when it comes to manage their economy.
Very much like Japan in the 1990s, where if they do the fiscal handouts, it just gets saved and not spent, basically. So I can very much see your point there. Let's look at China data. Now, China is on holiday from Tuesday till Friday of next week, but on Monday, both the Kaizen and the official PMIs, Purchasing Manager Indices data, will be released. Now, could this impact market sentiment if those figures are weak, or do you believe that the market will dismiss that as backward-looking data now?
I think in my view, the numbers might not be pretty because that's why they launch a whole series of monetary measures. But let's not forget, right? The overall objective is to achieve a 5% economic growth, and they have done that for the first half. And the last quarter was unpleasant, and they couldn't hit the numbers. And I think the final last quarter will be more critical in terms of whether they could achieve the overall targets they set for themselves. And with this series of measures that they have announced, we have to really look at how the economy will turn around and whether they could finally achieve the 5% target they set themselves.
Okay, now let's have a look at the United States. We've got Jay Powell speaking tonight, along with a couple of other Fed speakers and some other pretty heavyweight, I believe, US data due out over the next two sessions. Are you expecting any major market impacts from this? Is there anything else on your radar that you're watching?
I think with the Fed rate cut out of the way, the coming announcements are all more subtle. And I think there's the activities will start to increase again towards the US presidential election. So I would say we have a quiet week for US or Europe for the coming 1 or 2 weeks, and then China will be on holiday for their long-term holidays as well. So you're unlikely to get any market news for the coming week.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for those comments today. It's always a pleasure having you on the show, Kian Soon.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
We've been speaking to Kian Soon, CEO of Astral Asset Management, coming to us from Singapore. And this has been BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. Be sure to keep informed of the latest updates every day at 1 p.m. Singapore time. I've been your host, Jeffrey Halley, and this video and podcast will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. You can also see it with our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, websites, and trading apps. Remember to like and subscribe, and thank you very much for tuning in today.